Before this episode starts, we at the Ground and Pound Cast would like to bid farewell to one of the most iconic martial artists of all time. He was an inspiration to many generations of martial artists and was an iconic action star on screen that entertained us all for decades. Rest in peace to the one, the only, the legendary Chuck Norris. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you once again for tuning into the Ground and Pound Cast. It is me, your host, Vince, the world's okayest jiu-jitsu blue belt, and I am joined with none other than the man whose idea was to create this podcast in the first place, Rick. Tell everybody hi, Rick.
What's going on, everybody?
So, we had a really fun fight night this past weekend, and we are going to be talking about that. We're also going to be talking about, at least briefly talk about the fight night that's going to be next weekend, but I won't be able to watch it. I won't be able to review it because I'm going to be with the family over in Disney World. So, Rick, you and Roy, y'all going to have to hold down the fort in my absence.
We certainly will. Looking forward to it.
But in the meantime, let's talk about this past weekend. This was actually a pretty fun fight card for a fight night. There was one fight that wasn't really all that exciting on the main card, but the rest were at least good, if not great. A couple of fights on the prelims I also want to talk about, but we'll get to that when we get to that. So let's start with the man who I've been mispronouncing his name for a very long time. I was like, is it Evloev or is it Evloev? I'm pretty sure I've heard online someone said Evloev, but then Bruce Buffer was saying Evloev, which is funny because that's like, if you read the name, that's exactly what it looks like it would be pronounced. And I think because we have these weird, funky names, I'm always looking at it going, it's got to be some weird twist in it. No, it's Evloev. It's Evloev, Evloev. Nothing fancy. Go figure. I'm always trying to overcomplicate things. It's my fault.
Well, sometimes it's straightforward.
Yeah. So this fight, what was not straightforward, though, were the scores of this fight. So this fight, a lot of people are really upset about it. Some say it should have went to Murphy. Some say it should have been a draw. Evloev beats Murphy by majority decision. So it was 48-46 by two judges and 47-47. It seems like I can't find very many people that agree on these scores. Very hard, to be fair, very hard to score these rounds because some of them were pretty close. So if you want to break down like how you saw the fight and why you think it scored certain ways, how you scored it, what were your thoughts on this fight overall and the scoring and how it played out?
Well, like in the group message I had sent out, right before they went to decision, I said I could really see this going any of three ways. I could see Evloev being the guy who gets it taken care of and gets the decision. It could have went to Murphy just as easily, in my opinion. There were like three or four very close rounds. I believe, round one, which we'll get into, I'm sure, that was a round that people saw differently. Round two was super close. Round three was super close. I do think Murphy gave up the last couple of rounds, but there was a point deduction in there, which really kind of, puts a cloud over, well, who really deserved to win? Because when you lose a point in these fights, especially these big time fights where they're so evenly matched, that can really be a deciding factor.
Yeah.
I thought it was really interesting that Movsar decided to really just do a lot of stand-up. Now, don't get me wrong. He had a handful of takedowns. He didn't really do much with the takedowns, but he showed he has the wrestling ability, but he made a point to stand with Murphy, which I did not think was a recipe for victory. And to me, he proved himself to be the better fighter. And, just looking down the road a tad, he also looks to be the bigger contest, I think, for Volk because he's so well-rounded. And, I think he squeaks it out. I think that point deduction, it could have been a tie, but I don't really see where Murphy would have got the outright win. I saw where a lot of people on threads were saying it was like 49-46 Murphy. I didn't see it that way. I'm curious as to your thoughts.
Yeah, so I agree that it probably could have been very easily, I say very easily, it could have just very justifiably been a 47-47. So whenever I look at how people, when I say people, I'm talking the fans, when they break down how they thought it should have been scored, I don't really agree, because they said Murphy won 4 rounds, and I don't know how he won 4 rounds. I look at the judges' scorecards. I don't have them up in front of me, but I was looking at them last night, and they were kind of all over the place. So how I had it played out was I had Evloev winning round 1. I think. Wait, I'm sorry. Did I say that right? Let me double check my notes here.
I think you had Murphy winning round 1.
Okay, all right, yeah. All right, I stand corrected. I had Murphy winning round 1 because I saw that he was able to stop all takedowns. If I recall, he stopped all takedowns, and it stayed standing, and Murphy outstruck him by a pretty good margin. And round 2 was the one that I think is really, really iffy. The one that I think could be the tiebreaker is, I think, could be round 2, because that was like a super, super close one. So Roy and I had judged every single round exactly the same except round 2. I admitted it was very, very close. I gave it to Evloev by just a thin margin. He gave it to Murphy. And I'm wondering if maybe I did this thing where sometimes we do this, we don't mean to, but it's just something I think is kind of natural. Whenever a person loses a round and they come back and look better in the next round, you give them that round because they look better than they did previously. But the scoring shouldn't have anything to do with the previous round. It was super close, and I'm thinking because it was super close, I'm like, well, if it's that close and he lost last round, maybe he takes this one. I don't know. When I went back and looked at the stats, when it showed like the strikes landed, Murphy did outstrike him in round 2. So maybe Murphy should have taken round 2 as well. In my initial watch, I had given it to Evloev, and I admitted that it was the hardest out of the entire fight. Round 2 was the hardest to score. Round three kind of makes me angry at the fan base, because the people that are really pulling for Murphy, everybody was saying that Murphy took round 3. I don't know in what universe you give Murphy round 3. I just don't see that. Evloev took him down several times. He did some ground and pound. It wasn't anything like he wasn't like close to finishing him or anything, but he really put his grappling to use. And then when it was standing, he was also outstriking him. So he landed more strikes. He won in the grappling exchanges, and every metric he won round 3. But a lot of people gave Murphy round 3, and I don't really understand that. Moving on to round 4, I think most people agree that Evloev technically won round. Well, I guess technically it was a draw, because that's what technically would mean. But I mean, like, if you go off of not counting the point deduction, Evloev did better in that round, so he should have won that round. But because the point deduction ends up being a wash, ends up being a 9-9 round, I don't think I saw too many people. I saw a few people say Murphy won the round, so it would have been a 10-8. I don't know how anyone scores it that way. I think 9-9 is very justified. Even Evloev agreed, because it was the second low blow, and you could tell it was unintentional. It was one of those things where you zig when he zagged, and it just things didn't line up right. It was clearly unintentional. And so whenever the ref called the 1-point deduction, Evloev didn't even argue it and didn't even look upset. He was nodding like, yes, this is justified. I deserve it. Let's move forward. So that was a 9-9 round, and Evloev really turned up the heat in round 5, and I think most people gave Evloev round 5. So when people are saying 49-46 or 49 or what the scores be, I don't feel like doing the math right now, but whenever people are saying that they gave Murphy 4 rounds out of 5, it was like the one round they gave Evloev was round 5 and 5 alone. And I don't really understand that, because he really took it to him in round 3. Round 4 was essentially a wash because of the point deduction. So I don't know. It was kind of tricky to score, because 2 for me was really close. I might go back and watch it and change my mind on round 2. So if you score it the way I saw it, it would be 48-46 Evloev. But if I change my mind on round 2 and give it to Murphy instead, it would be a 47-47 draw, which is the way Roy scored it. And I wouldn't be mad at that score, because that round was that close. So if you gave it to Murphy, cool. 47-47 draw sounds reasonable to me. So that's basically my thoughts round for round on the entire fight.
Yeah, I like that. I do have these scores pulled up. So I had it 48-46, and like I said, I had 1, 3, 4, and 5 going to Evloev. Two of the three judges agreed. They had 48-46 going to Evloev, and they all had the same rounds, 1, 3, 4, and 5. There was one card that had it 47-47. So again, I think I think the right guy won, in my opinion. But if it were to be a draw, it wouldn't be surprising because we've talked about it here before, but the Paramount era, there really are so many great matchups. And so you have a lot of really close fights, a lot of close rounds. And that's exactly what we saw on display here in the main event.
Right. Now, moving on to this next fight, Luke Riley versus Michael Aswell Jr. And this was a really fun fight. It wasn't like a barn burner. It wasn't fight of the night, but I actually really enjoyed this fight. So this one was unanimous decision, 30-27. I can't remember if I scored it 30-27 or if I had a 29-28, but I feel like it was the right score. It was a pretty fun back and forth fight. So this is one of those fights where even if you score at 30-27, it doesn't mean that it was a one-sided fight because you could still have three very close rounds where the same guy squeaked by each time. And I think that's what happened here. So what do you think about that fight, Riley versus Aswell?
Well, yeah, you stole my thunder. I was just about to say the exact same thing. It was 30-27. The right guy won. But, man, that was a fun fight. They stood there and exchanged. Riley really impressed me with his boxing. I think he's real crisp in and out. Aswell's tough, though, and he was not going to go down without a fight himself. He mixed up body shots, leg kicks. He really kind of he was difficult to kind of figure out, but Riley, I think by the time the second round came along, he really started to feel his rhythm and pace, and that's when we started to really see him exceed. Round 3, by the time they got halfway through that round, it looked like Aswell, the damage was catching up with him a little bit. Riley looked more crisp, but again, a fun back and forth. Aswell showed me a lot. I think he could be around a while. The way he moved kind of reminded me of Topuria. So at first when I'm watching him, of course, I'm not saying he's Topuria, but I'm thinking, man, maybe he's going to be the better boxer. His footwork was on point, but the more Luke Riley got in and out and connected, the slower Aswell got. And I think the gap kind of got a little bigger round after round.
Yeah, that's kind of how I saw it as well. It was pretty fun. I accidentally said the dude's last name right there. I said that's how I saw the fight as well. Sorry, I got to throw in a little pun there.
I see what you did there.
So yeah, it's a pretty fun fight. Not much else to say. These are two more featherweight contenders. They are still, I think, unranked. So maybe we'll see them later on burst into the rankings and really shake things up. Not that the featherweight rankings really need that because I think it's a pretty solid division. This fight headlined by Evloev and Murphy. And we actually didn't touch on this, so I want to go back a little bit. So going back to Evloev and Murphy, and sorry to backtrack on this, but it's a point I really want to get out there. So obviously Evloev is now going to face Volkanovski. Who do you think is next for Murphy? And I think I have a really good answer for that. But who do you think would be a good pick for Murphy next?
Well, considering it went to a decision and considering it was so close, you really shouldn't be penalizing Murphy. And that is his first loss. So it's not like, oh, man, the guy needs to prove himself again. Looking at the rankings right now, Diego Lopez is still number 2, which I don't really understand that, to be quite honest. I think he's a great fighter. And obviously there's no shame in losing to Volk. I'm not real sure he deserves to be number 2, even after back-to-back losses. But looking at it, of course, you got Gene Silva floating out there. And Gene Silva's probably going to be fighting Volk or the winner of Volk Evloev rather. So it makes it interesting. Does Murphy fight a Lopez or Rodriguez? I don't really think he needs to fight anybody any further down than that because, again, I think he deserves to be in contention right there with those guys. So Lopez coming off a loss or two and Murphy coming off a loss, I think that might be a good, fun, stylistic matchup where the winner is right back in the mix.
My thoughts exactly. Anything I say would just be a repeat. So when I said I think I have a name, it was Lopez for all the reasons you just listed. Evloev looked good, but I think he's going to lose to Volkanovski, just my opinion.
Yeah, I agree. Evloev showed me a lot. I do think it'll be competitive. I don't think Volk gets a finish, which is a lot of respect to Evloev, but yeah, I see it the same way. Until Volk really loses somebody not named Ilia Topuria in the featherweight division, I'm going to keep picking Volk.
All right. So, Fight Night fights usually have 6 fights on the main card as opposed to numbered events, which have 5. This one, I guess you could say, actually had 5 fights instead of 6, because they actually took a break in the middle of the main event card on this one to give us an episode of Dancing with the Stars, where you had Michael Page facing off against Sam Patterson in a very awkward dance battle. What do you think about this dance battle that they had?
When Michael Venom Page has it going, it's a lot of fun. When he's in and out and he's making contact, it's a lot of fun. But he needs that other person to be aggressive so his counter striking can be on display. Sam Patterson was tentative the whole time. It reminded me a lot of the Venom Page Kevin Holland fight. And Holland, by the end of it, was so frustrated. He's like, I want to fight. This guy just wants to dance. I want to fight. And Patterson, he kind of exhibited some of the same characteristics. He looked like a guy who just wanted to fight, but he was so leery of getting in there against Venom Page because he can strike. He gets in and out so fast. Even at 39 years old, he is so quick. It intimidates his opponents. Sam Patterson was no different. This is a guy coming off 4 straight wins, 4 straight finishes, trying to make a name for himself at 14-2. They throw him into the deep end, and I don't think he lost embarrassingly by any stretch, but it just, to your point, it looked like a dance competition. Venom was waiting for him to jump in. Sam never really wanted to. Therefore, we weren't really treated to much of a fight. The fans were booing. I was upset watching it. I love Venom Page. I like watching him fight, but this just did not check any of the boxes for me. I would never want to have to watch a fight like that again. Venom's better than that. It's just, unfortunately, the styles didn't match up right for this fight.
Wait, hold on. So this was a fight?
Well, they threw a few little bunny punches in there in between.
I thought
it was Dancing with the Stars. It was.
Yeah, I thought it was Dancing with the Stars. All right, all jokes aside, Michael Venom Page, what blows my mind is how well this guy moves. He is so athletic. He glides around that ring. He's very fast and he's very long for his height. I just wish that if he's facing someone else who doesn't want to engage, he needs to be able to create openings. Like if a counter striker is facing someone that doesn't want to strike, you have to learn how to force the openings, and he wasn't really doing that. So I think what the problem was, these two were both counter strikers, and they were just waiting for the other to engage. And when that happens, this is what you get. So this fight didn't move the needle. I don't know what else there is to say about it.
Yeah, not much to say. Roy and I were texting a little bit. He thought Patterson won round 1. I thought Venom did, but I don't know. I think Page squeaked it out. Again, one of these situations, I think the right guy won, but it just wasn't entertaining. He got a few more shots in, and that's really all there is to say. There was no real big moments in the fight. There wasn't oh my God. It was just dancing around, man.
Yeah, and the scores were 30-27 by one judge, 29-28 by the other two. I didn't even bother trying to analyze it and break it down round for round. So as far as the scores go, I don't really care.
Yep.
All right.
That was a stinker.
Now this next fight didn't need the judges. It didn't even need 30 seconds. It only needed 28 seconds. So you have who we were calling Iwo Baranowski, but Polish names like to throw in the F sound even when there is no F in there. It's Baranowski going against Austin Lane. And Austin Lane is like way bigger than Baranowski. Like, it looked like these two were not in the same. They look like 2 weight classes apart from each other. Austin Lane just towered over Baranowski. Baranowski's like, I don't give a damn. I'm still putting you to sleep. It only took this man 28 seconds. He lands a really nasty combination that drops him and just jumps all over him and just finish him off with just a flurry of strikes. All it took was a half a minute. I was blown away by this performance. What do you think about it?
Yeah, I mean, he instantly swarms. He gets in there. He lands a few clean shots, and it's over before it even really begins. I ran to the bathroom. I'm coming back, and I'm watching the guy fall to the ground. I said, oh, my God, it's already over? Like, I just left. So, this sport can be brutal at times, and one shot can be a game changer. Maybe if they fought 10 times, Lane wins the majority. Maybe not. But when he got that right in clean, it was over with. And he shows that knockout power. And so it's interesting to see where he'll go from here. Austin Lane's a guy who fights, and he's been knocked out 6 times prior to yesterday. And so he's either going to kill or be killed. He got killed. But that's the type of style fights that people want to see. They want to see a banger. They want to see, people just exchange. Maybe not even that quick of a finish for some. That was a little quick, but that's his fans. That's usually what we kind of want. And he delivered in a big way.
Yeah, I'm definitely going to be keeping an eye on this guy. He is unranked. Fought someone else who was also unranked, but I think after a performance like this, wouldn't surprise me. He's now 2-0 in the UFC, 3 if you count the Dana White's Contender Series, not technically UFC, but is still part of the umbrella organization. And listen to this. I'm looking at his entire career right here. He only has a total of 8 fights. So I'm going to break down each fight one by one very briefly. First fight, first round submission. Second fight, first round submission. Third fight, first round TKO. Fourth fight, first round TKO. Followed by another first round TKO. First round KO. First round KO. First round TKO. This man is 8 fights into his career, has never gone to the second round. His longest fight was 3 minutes and 54 seconds. This dude demolishes people in the first round every single fight, whether it's by submission or knockout. Undefeated. This guy is scary. He's from Poland. 6 of his wins have been by knockout, so you know he's got that infamous Polish power. I'm just saying, this is a guy we really need to keep an eye on. If you see his name pop up on a future card, make sure you do not miss his fight.
And in a shallow division, it's exciting to have somebody new to talk about.
Right.
So.
I don't know if light heavyweight's really shallow. It's top heavy. I think like lower half is shallow, upper half is pretty solid.
I agree. But that's what I mean. Like it doesn't, you don't go far down the roster before you start saying, oh, so he's a guy who could easily move into that, ranking system, top 10 type of thing. Yeah.
Cause I look at, the top 15 that I have pulled up in front of me. And again, these rankings have been updated, but 7 and up, you have a lot of former champions or just other really good fighters. 8 and down, it's a whole bunch of nobodies. Apart from
Johnny Walker's a nobody.
You know what? I gotta give Walker some credit. He's actually been looking pretty good his last handful of fights. But he's also a guy like he's gonna give us some good fights. He's gonna give us some good wins, but he's never going to really, break into the top 5 and be a threat to the title or anything like that. He's gonna
dare I say gatekeeper.
He really is. He's a fun one to watch though. He's really good.
Oh, absolutely.
And he has a fight.
I always hate on the guy, but I love watching his fights. Somebody's going to sleep.
Right. But then let's say when you get to 7 and up, you have Jamal Hill, who, to be fair, is kind of on a skid right now, but he still is a talented fighter, a former champion. You have Mirzka Kanov. Actually, I don't have much on him. Blachowicz, former champion, right? Yeah. Roundtree, not a former champion, but he has shown that he could hang with champion-level fighters.
Scary.
Yeah, and then number 2 and number 3, you have the 2 guys that are fighting for the vacant title, Yuri Prochazka and Carlos Ulberg, 2 absolute monsters. Ankalaev, former champion. The rankings still have Pereira shown as champion, even though he, if I'm not mistaken, has officially vacated at this point.
That's my understanding.
Yeah, I guess they just haven't removed him yet. But yeah, when you get to like 7 and above, you start hitting a murder's row. So... yeah, I'm anxious to see where they put Baranevsky. I say make his next fight someone maybe in the outside of the top 10.
Dustin Jacoby, a name that we all know, somebody like that.
Yeah, Zhang Minyang's coming off of a loss, unless he's had another fight since that loss where he lost to Johnny Walker in China. I don't know if he's fought since then. But yeah, you can give one of these guys. Rakic, I think some of these guys are actually coming off of losses, so maybe find one of these that are coming off of a win. Yeah, Reyes and Walker booked. They'll be fighting in a few weeks.
Absolutely. That'll be a fun one.
I think Walker's going to take that one. I think if this would have been like 5 years ago, I'd give it to Reyes, but not anymore.
I'm with you there 100%.
Yeah. All right, so let's go on with the next fight here. You have Christian Leroy Duncan versus Roman Dolidze. This is the only fight that I was wrong on my predictions. So this was one of those striker versus grappler fights, and Dolidze starts off with some pretty good takedowns and really good control, but it seems like he has a problem finishing because he wasn't really doing anything to open up for the heavy strikes to get a TKO or the submissions. I mean, I look at his record here. He does have 8 wins by knockout and 3 by submission, so he does know how to finish, but it didn't seem like it in this last fight. He would get control over Duncan and then just seem to like not know what to do. And then Duncan would scramble and get back up and then get back to striking. And when he did, it was just very one-sided. Dolidze could not hold his own at all against Duncan in the striking department. And it results in a 29-28 decision win by Duncan. What was your thoughts on this fight?
Yeah, I saw it. So I looked at it, 29-28, all 3 judges, and I'm pretty confident that was a 1 in round 3, they tipped the cap to Mr. Duncan. I think Dolidze won round 2 with some successful grappling. But it's one of the classic stylistic matchups. Who wins out? Dolidze looks a step slow, and I was big on Fluffy. I was singing his praises because of how he just got, how Fluffy dominated Dolidze, and I wasn't used to seeing that. We were talking about a guy who was 15-2, and he's lost his last couple now, but in both, he's looked kind of a step slow. I don't know if it's catching up with him. He's been around a while. If the tread on the tire is wearing thin, I'm not sure. But Mr. Duncan looked really good with his exchanges in the striking department. He looked crisp. He kind of found that range, and by round 3, he really, to me, that was the round he had to win because I thought it was tied going into the third. But his footwork and volume, he just overwhelmed Dolidze. Dolidze, by the end of the fight, I don't know. I don't know where he stands anymore with his game. If he had some kind of injury he was battling that we don't know about, he just didn't look like himself, and he hasn't now in his last couple fights.
Right, and this was one of those fights that really frustrated me as a jiu-jitsu guy because I still harp that grappling can be great in MMA if done right. And what we saw last night from Dolidze was the opposite of that. So there's like this narrative about jiu-jitsu guys. All they do is like fight off their back. They want to like lay on their back and pull guard, and that's just not feasible in an actual fight. And if you actually train jiu-jitsu, that's not really the case. You have a lot of top control stuff, and you know how to dominate from the top. There's a lot of jiu-jitsu guys out there who win a lot by KO because they know how to control you on the ground from a top position and then just punch you because they're dominating you. But Dolidze showed the ugly side of jiu-jitsu, even though he's not listed as a jiu-jitsu guy. When you look up his accolades, apparently has judo, jiu-jitsu, and wrestling all in his repertoire. And a lot of these fights where he would get in these exchanges and he would either fall back or Duncan would knock him down, and he would get to where he was laying flat on his back and just spread his legs open, like this is not UFC we're watching, just kind of inviting Duncan to try to jump into a very lazy open guard. And it looks ridiculous, and I hate it. As a jiu-jitsu guy, it pains me to see when I see a fighter fighting like this, where you just lay on your back with your legs open, like, come at me, come lay on me. Like, what are you doing, man? Get up. That's not how you should fight. You shouldn't be laying on your back with your legs open trying to invite someone to jump on you. If this was an actual fight, not a MMA match, but a fight, they're going to just run up and start stomping on you. Don't do that crap. You make grapplers look bad doing this crap. When people make fun of jiu-jitsu competitors, it's this type of jiu-jitsu, practice that they're making fun of. So I hated to see it last night. It was actually frustrating me to the point where I don't ever want to see Dolidze fight again. Don't embarrass my art that way. Don't embarrass.
Strong words.
Right. It makes me angry. Like, I want to see, like, if you are going to use jiu-jitsu, like, do it in a way where you're actually engaging and getting control. Don't, like, laying on your back with your legs open. You look like you're in something else that's not MMA. That's all I'm saying.
Right. Plus, nobody wants to see that. You're going to get booed. Dana, he's putting a lot of emphasis on finishes, and here's $50,000 extra, if you get this or that. So nobody wants to see somebody crawling around on their butt or just laying there with their hands behind their head and their legs up, to your point. Nobody wants to see that. Don't do it.
Now, to be fair, I still will say this wasn't a bad fight to watch because Duncan looked really good. Like, whenever it was standing and he was striking, he looked fantastic. He looked great. So he's middleweight. I don't know if he's ranked. Dolidze was ranked. I don't know if Duncan is. Let me see real quick.
Duncan is not, at least as of yesterday.
So he just beat number 11 Dolidze. So he will be ranked after this. So
yeah,
there's a lot of names. When you look at, if he just beat 11, you look at 10, 9, 8. I could see him fighting these guys. You got Cannonier, Whitaker, DeRitter.
God, that's a deep division. Man,
it really is.
Pfeiffer's at 14. Of course, he's about to fight Adesanya. We'll talk about that later. But Costa's at 13. RoboCop. I mean, just killers all the way up.
I'm surprised
that whole roster.
I'm surprised RoboCop's that low. RoboCop did have a loss against Cannonier a couple years ago, and I think that stifled his ascension. Yeah, I think like outside of that, when you see him fight, it's like it feels like he needs to be ranked higher than this. So
Brendan Allen's not even top 5. That man, wow, that's nuts.
That's a local, man.
Yeah,
he's a local fighter. Lives right down the road. I say right down the road. It's like from where I live, it's like an hour, a little over an hour maybe. Right. I've never met him, but my coach apparently knows him. I didn't know that, but All right, now let's talk about this opening fight of the main card. Danny Silva versus Curtis Campbell. And I called it whenever I was doing the predictions last week. Curtis Campbell was undefeated, but I was looking at his record. I'm like, I'm not too impressed with the people he's fought. Danny Silva had 2 losses, but he's faced much, much better competition. And usually when that happens, I'm going to go with the guy who's faced a much better competition, look better against them. And so I said, I think Curtis Campbell's going to no longer be undefeated when this is over. And sure enough, Danny Silva wins. Second round, TKO. It only took him 31 seconds to the second round. And Silva looked great even in the first round. So this was really fun to watch. This might have been my favorite fight on the main card. Well, I don't know. I almost want to say Baranevsky, but it was so short that it's kind of hard to give it to that one.
Yeah. I think if a fight's less than a minute, I don't know.
Yeah. So this one was one full round and 31 seconds of the second round. And this was, I think, the most fun fight to watch on the main card. Danny Silva looked fantastic against Curtis Campbell. So what are your thoughts on this one?
I thought they both looked pretty good. Campbell obviously came up on the wrong side of this, but I think he showed well for himself. They had really, really, really excellent exchanges. To me, it was really fun watching Silva. And then he was able to kind of read Campbell's entries a little bit as the first round went on. They felt themselves out just a little bit. I thought the first round was super close. Silva did win that round, in my opinion. But again, a very competitive match with outstanding striking. And then as we get into round 2, Silva makes quick work, 31 seconds in. Excellent combination. He put those hands on Campbell, and Campbell, he drops, and ultimately it gets finished. But very, very exciting fight. I wish it could have went a little longer, but all that said, we still got a full round and 31 seconds into the next. I always like when you see the matchups where the strikers both engage. We were just talking about like Venom Page and counter striker versus counter striker. Neither of these guys were counter strikers. They were just going at it. And that's what you want to see. That's fun stuff. And that's really all I have to say about that.
Yeah. And one thing I noticed about Danny Silva that is intriguing, and I will be looking for this in his future fights, is it looks like he's someone who's comfortable fighting from both stances. I don't know if you noticed this. So he came out, I think he's an orthodox fighter, right-handed in other words. Right. But sometimes when you throw a combination where you throw that really hard right, you have to rechamber by taking that step back to get back into right-handed stance. When he would throw that, he would land in like a southpaw stance. He would stay there, and he would continue striking for a little bit. And then whenever he'd throw a really hard left, he would just switch back to orthodox. So he was swapping back and forth between orthodox and southpaw. I don't know if that's like he trains for that to where he could fight both. And you usually don't see that. Like high-level strikers tend to like really focus on their dominant stance and just master the dominant stance. If you get a guy who's really good at switching, that's actually a really good strength to have, because it's kind of like a switch hitter or switch pitcher in baseball. If you know you're going to have the advantage being right or left based off of who you're squaring off against, you can adjust as needed to give yourself that advantage, which a lot of people can't have. And I noticed if you go back and watch that fight, Danny Silva would sometimes be southpaw, sometimes be orthodox, just kind of switch it back and forth as needed. And I was like, oh, that's very interesting. And he looked comfortable doing it. Some people, like, they'll switch fight. When they switch, you could tell it looks a little awkward, like they're a little bit slower. Mm-hmm. When they throw, it's a little more uncoordinated. It's like they're trying to do it but can't do it right. No, when Silva would switch, I'm like, oh, he's a southpaw, because he's moving too good to not be a southpaw. And then he would switch. I'm like, no, he's orthodox. I can't tell. He looked great from both stances. And I know it's like a small detail and doesn't sound like it's a big deal, but when you get high level, if you know that someone struggles against southpaws and you can fight southpaw even though that's not normally what you do, like, that is a great strength to have. So I just want to throw that out there. I don't know if you noticed that, but he could switch fight, and that's a really cool skill to have.
That's a nice tool in the bag, because somebody starts chopping away at one of your legs and then you can go ahead and protect it. There's a lot of advantages to doing that. So again, to present a different, look too for guys. If a guy's like, oh, this guy's right-handed, most people are used to seeing right-handed guys. If you can switch southpaw and pop him with the right jab and then come with the left cross, I mean, there's just so many different variants, so many advantages to being able to do something like that. I did not notice that, but that's a good key pickup there.
Yeah. All right, now there are 2 fights in the prelims I want to talk about. I want to spend a whole lot of time talking on these, but I at least want to mention them. So I have been talking about Mario. I've been calling him Pinto forever, like the bean, pinto beans, but it's Pinto. Mario Pinto, I've been talking about him since this podcast started as one of the heavyweight names to look out for, and he fought on the prelims last night against another unranked person, and I've been harping on this guy for so long that he's going to be the next big thing, that he's amazing, he has a high finish rate, he looks fantastic, and he gave us a very blah performance. He won, but what else was there to say about it? Did you even catch that fight?
I did not. That's one of the ones I missed on the prelims.
So it's 29-28, and it was kind of like, I'm not going to say it's as boring as the MVP fight, but it's another one that's similar in that so little was happening that I just didn't even feel like putting forth the mental effort to score it, to like decide who I think won round for round, because it just was very inactive. It's kind of disappointing for how much I've been hyping this guy up, and he wins just by kind of, it looked like a sparring session, like a light sparring session. And maybe Pinto landed a little bit more. There's not much else to say about it. So the reason why I'm mentioning this fight is because I've been hyping this guy for so long. I've mentioned this guy's name a ton of times in this podcast, and he did fight, so I at least have to mention it. I will say that just because you have one blah performance, it doesn't mean that you still can't be great later. He is still undefeated. He still does have a high finish rate, so we'll see. So I will say at this point that maybe I'm gonna slow down that hype train a little bit. I'm going to pull that lever and kind of slow it down just a little bit. But, yeah, I at least wanted to mention it. You know, we'll see how he looks later moving forward. But if he does want to rise up the rankings and shake up the rankings, let's see a little more aggression, you know, in your future fights.
Yep, that division needs more guys. So, you know, anybody that's new blood that has potential, I'll root for it.
Yeah, just give us a little bit more than this fight, because like I said, this felt like a sparring match.
Right.
It was only slightly more engaging than the MVP fight.
That's not saying much.
No. Now, a fight that we do not have that complaint on, we have to talk about this fight. We just have to.
Woo.
The very last fight of the prelim fight, which was, I haven't even looked to confirm it was fight of the night, but I don't need to.
Yeah,
it was. I'm going to go ahead and look it up.
It has to be.
Right here.
Look it up.
Fight of the night.
Let's go ahead and verify that.
Fight of the night.
It has
Mason
to be.
Jones versus Axel Sola. My goodness, what a fight. So I had the first round I said was close, but I gave it to Sola because he had more control and he did overall land more than Jones did. But Jones did do more damage, and it was mostly from one exchange. He did one exchange where he got a nasty, nasty cut on the right cheek of Sola, but that's like the only thing he did that really stuck out, where the rest of it, Sola had the takedowns, he had the control, and he did land more overall, even though he dished out less damage than Jones did. Rounds 2 and 3 were rounds that were pretty close. Like, I was thinking Jones was ahead going into the 4th minute, and then both rounds, I think he knew that he needed to secure those rounds, so he turns up the heat really, really hard in the last minute. He did that both in the 2nd and 3rd round, so where he turned 2 close rounds where he was probably winning to rounds that he was definitely winning because he just turned it up, especially in that 3rd round. He had Solo covered up against the cage and had no answer, and it was like, If the fight would have gone maybe another 20 seconds, I think Jones could have probably got a TKO because Solo was just covered up against the cage, just waiting for the clock to run out, and Jones just teeing off on him until the bell rang. So the final scores were 30-27 by one judge, 29-28 by the other two. And I think the reason why you have that 30-27 is because that first round, even though I gave it to Sola, I won't be mad if he gave it to Jones because of the damage he dished out in that one exchange. But this fight was absolutely amazing. So what were your thoughts on it?
Yeah, I mean, again, this is one of those fights where there were some close rounds. I thought Sola won the first round as well. Sola had that big spinning back elbow in the first round that dropped Mason Jones. That was, I mean, whenever you see that, that's impressive. That's the timing of it all. We did see that repeated by both guys throughout the fight where they missed. But the fact that he started 1 for 1 and was able to drop Mason early with that, I thought that was super impressive. He chained together some takedowns on Jones. Jones survived it though. They end up getting back to their feet. nasty combinations. But again, I think Sola with that spinning back elbow that dropped Mason, I think he wins round 1. And that's where it changes. Round 2, I think Jones comes out. He busts Sola up under his eye, nasty gash. And he just kept beating on it throughout the fight. Sola was able to mix in some takedowns, but I thought Jones won round 2 overall. He was just overwhelming Sola and started opening that cut up. And then as they got into that third round, he really, I mean, it seemed like he opened up multiple gashes on this guy, heavy bleeding. It started getting really, really gruesome. You know, I had my kids, they were kind of playing in the living room. I was like, all right, y'all need to get out of here. It's getting nasty. Yeah. And, you know, if you're one of those guys who doesn't watch the prelims, watch this fight. This fight delivered. I was, man, back and forth. We saw all aspects of MMA on display. I thought at high level. I really enjoyed this fight. There was a point in the first round where Mason Jones did like the slash his throat and pointed at him. I was like, man, this is like a real war. These guys are going at it. And every round delivered. But again, I think the right guy won. That I had it 29-28 as well, like with 2 of the judges. So yeah, Mason Jones, impressive win, but nothing to hang your head at if you're Sola. What a warrior, fighting through all that blood, and just really impressive performance from both gentlemen.
Yeah, the cut on Sola's right cheek was bad. That's going to be a scar. Like, wait till he heals up and you see him in the future. You're going to see a scar on his right on his right cheekbone, right under his eye. And so one thing I noticed is that Sola was able to take Jones down, but he couldn't keep Jones down very long. Jones actually showed to have really good scrambles. Like sometimes you get into like a bad position, so you like get an underhook, you turn your hips, and you kind of roll and you scramble and get back up. He had really good scrambles. So I didn't really know much about Jones's, fighting skill set, his background, So I just pulled it up. He's a black belt in jiu-jitsu and a black belt in judo, and it also says a black belt in kickboxing. But I want to focus on the jiu-jitsu and judo part. So that makes sense that he was able to have those scrambles. So it looks like he prefers the striking. When you look at his wins, his finish rate here, he's got 8 wins by knockout and 3 by submission, so it looks like he does prefer the striking. But having that black belt in jiu-jitsu and having that black belt in judo, that he understands the leverage, he knows how to scramble and get back up, which we did see. So Sola was able to take him down several times and even start to try to work something on him, but every time Jones was able to get back out of it. And I think that's when we talk about a good, well-rounded MMA fighter who knows how to use grappling in an effective way, even if you prefer striking, this is what we're talking about here. Like if you're not trying to take them down and choke them out or something like that, to have those skills to use in a defensive manner, you get taken down and you have those skills to not allow yourself to get put into the worst positions and get back up to your feet. That's what we want to see. And that's what Jones did. And it was really fun to watch. I was very impressed. This dude is 18-2. He has 8 wins by knockout, 3 by submission, so he has a fairly high finish rate. He has 7 by decision, so there still is a decent handful, but he still gets finishes more than he goes to decision, and only has 2 losses, and they were much earlier in his career. Currently, he's on looks like a 7-fight win streak, so this guy could be a real contender moving forward. So this was it was a lightweight fight. So unranked versus unranked. I say put him against someone in the lower part of the rankings for his next fight, is my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, lightweight we talk about stacked divisions. That's a stacked division as well. With the exception of maybe Michael Chandler in there, everybody's pretty much a killer. So Paddy Pimblett's not in the top 5, and obviously that doesn't even count the champion. And he's looked really good. I mean, top to bottom, might be the best division. I don't know. It's right up there, but really maybe you give him. Maybe he gets an older guy like a Dariush who might be on his way out, but has name recognition. But again, a super stacked division, and UFC is loaded with talent right now. There's no doubt about it.
Yeah. All right, so that's really it for this event. There's some other fights in the prelims, but nothing I don't really think we need to go over. A lot of decisions. Looks like we had a couple of TKOs and the rest were decisions on the prelims, so I don't know if we need to take time to break all that down. If you're ready, I think we can talk about next week.
Yeah, we can talk about next week.
All right, so once again, I'm not going to be able to watch these fights unless I feel like, I might, if someone tells me the fights are good enough, I might pull up my tablet, like when we're at the hotel and chilling out in the evening, the family goes to sleep, I might pull up and watch a couple of fights, but I definitely won't be watching them live, so I'm going to be in Disney World with the family. But I did at least go through the main card to give my predictions, and I think we're just going to go through them pretty quickly. And feel free to give me your more in-depth thoughts if you choose to, Rick. So going from top to bottom, for just the main card, you start off with a very solid fight that I think could very well be on a pay-per-view or a numbered event, as they say nowadays. Israel Adesanya versus Joe Pyfer. This is a fun fight. Now, I think a lot of people in agreement here that had this fight been a handful of years ago, that Izzy would be the strong favorite. But I think we've seen his best years behind him, and Pyfer is kind of rising the ranks like a rocket ship. He's looked really, really good in his last handful of fights. I think that we're seeing Izzy on the way out, Pyfer on his way up. I think this is Pyfer's fight to win here.
Yeah, I agree. Pyfer's a guy who's 15-3. He's got 9 wins by knockout, 4 by submission. So his finish rate's 85%-ish. 7 first-round finishes. Big knockout power. I do believe he's a black belt in jiu-jitsu. The man has a good ground game, but he is known for throwing that right hand. His nickname is Body Bags because he just puts people out. And I think Israel Adesanya, I know he's been showing off his grappling abilities, and maybe he needs to be focused on that. But again, he's going up against a great grappler. People always think of the power, but he can grapple. But I think he keeps it standing. I think Pyfer's able to knock him out. I think Izzy, while he had a great run, maybe the best middleweight of all time, he is not the man he was even a couple years ago. I think Pyfer's on the way up and Izzy is on the way down.
I think he was the second best middleweight of all time.
I would 100% agree. I don't think he was ever the best, but
he's the second best, which is still something to say because, I mean...
Amazing. Yeah. Amazing.
Because we all know who the greatest middleweight of all time is.
Yeah, well, there's only one answer.
John Jones.
Obviously.
I just have to make
Back when he was in middle school.
Yes. I just have to make that joke because like MMA fans are like so hung up on John Jones still that I'll see posts all the time like who is the greatest, and it'll be something that John Jones not a category in, and everyone's like John Jones.
He's the best.
Now I've seen that like who is the greatest lightweight of all time? People are like Nurmagomedov and Islam Makhachev, BJ Penn. They list all these guys, and people are like John Jones. Like did you read the post? It says greatest lightweight since John Jones couldn't make lightweight if he cut his right arm and right leg off.
Yeah, no, that's never going to happen.
No. The greatest middleweight of all time, obviously, the Spider.
Yeah, and I've heard some people say, well, they fought, and so now we know who the better one is. That is ignorant as ignorant can be. If you really believe that, then I don't really know what to say to you. But prime Anderson Silva, in my opinion, peak Anderson Silva is the best mixed martial artist I've ever seen.
I think even Israel Adesanya said that. I even think he agreed with that.
Yeah, there was a time where when Anderson Silva fought, you were watching just to see like what is he going to do next. The way he moved, the way he could set people up.
Yeah,
beautiful, just beautiful.
All right, now moving on to another fight where you have a former champion fighting another rising up and comer, Alexa Grasso fighting Macy Barber, and I think that my opinion on this one is very much like the previous one. I think Grasso's best years, not that she had the same run Izzy did, but I think she peaked and is already on her way out, and Barber is on a very long winning streak. I'd like to see Grasso get a win here, but I think Barber's just got the momentum on her right now. Grasso, she had a very good series of fights with the GOAT in her division, Shevchenko, where they went 1-1-1. But after that, Grasso's looked very mediocre. She's lost against, decent but not great competition. And now she's fighting someone. She hasn't won in her last 3 fights. She had a draw and then 2 losses back to back. And now she's fighting someone who's on, I believe, a 7 or 8 fight win streak. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 fight win streak. I think kind of like the previous fight, I think the rising contender is beating the on the way out former champion. So I got Barber in this one.
So I got you. And looking at it, I mean, that could very well be the case. I'm going to pick Grasso. Grasso, to your point, she lost to Natalia Silva, who is top 5 up-and-comer. She lost to Shevchenko, and she had a draw versus Shevchenko, and she beat Shevchenko. That's her last 4. So in her last 4 fights, she's fought 2 people, and she's had a mixture of results versus Shevchenko, which we saw what she did to Zhang Weili. So I think if you're competitive with Shevchenko, you're still elite. And Silva, like I said, is an up-and-comer in the division. I don't know that I don't know that Grasso's time is up yet. I think she's fought stiff competition, and maybe the results haven't always gone her way, but these are decisions she's losing. And one was a split decision versus Shevchenko, where it was a draw, of course. I just think that she's still at that, maybe she's not at the very peak, but she's still in that end of her prime type era. I think she can get the win. Macy Barber is on a hot streak. It could go either way, of course, but I'm going to lean Grasso. I think she's fought stiffer competition and has shown well for herself.
Fair enough. I think it is a valid point. This is one where I'm not quite as confident in that as I am in that main event. So we shall see. Maybe Grasso can get back in the win column here, or maybe the Barber hype train continues going. All right, moving on to this next fight. You have Julian Erosa going against Larian Douglas. Didn't really know a whole lot about these two. I was looking at their recent handful of fights, and in their recent bit of fights, it looks like Douglas has done a lot better. So that's really the only metric I have to go off of. So I have Douglas winning this one.
I got Douglas pulled up here, and it shows 1-0. I don't have anything on it. I'd be lying if I told you anything. He's from Brazil, so I'm going to say Douglas gets the win.
He's 13-5 overall. He is making.
So maybe it's just 1-0 in the UFC. Because it's showing 1-0 on UFC's website, so
I don't know where they're getting that from. I don't know if he's making his UFC debut. So there was the Contender Series, so maybe they're counting the Contender Series. So you've seen that one, but
yeah, that must be it.
He is on a 5-fight win streak, and then when I look at Erosa is 3-3 in his last 6. No,
right.
It's really all I have to go off of. So I'm gonna go with Douglas on this one.
I'm with it.
All right, now this next fight, this is one where I was really struggling to decide on who I thought was going to win. You have Mansour Abdul Malik going against Yusri Belgaroui. Dang freaking names are so hard to pronounce. Babyface assassin from the Netherlands. This was really tough because both have looked good in their last handful of fights. I am leaning slightly in favor of Abdul Malik. I just think it looks like he's faced a bit better competition. I think that he's had a bit better of a win-loss series in his last handful of fights. Actually, he's undefeated. He is 9 wins and... I'm sorry. Wait, hold on. Let me double check this. Yeah. So he's 9 wins and
9 wins,
draw.
no losses, 1 no contest.
I think it was one. Okay. I think it was one draw.
Gotcha.
And it was supposed to be like it was, I remember reading something about this. It was supposed to be like a no contest and they turned it into a majority draw or something like that. It's like some weird finish that happened because I think of an accidental headbutt or something like that against Cody Brundage. Had like a weird finish, but this guy's undefeated. He hasn't faced super stiff competition, but he's faced pretty decent competition. Whereas Belgaroui, I don't know, he's kind of on a hot streak too. So this is one I'm really not super sure on. I decided on Malik because he's technically undefeated still. It's really all I have to go off of that one.
I'm going to agree with you. More or less the same logic applies. He's 9-0-1. He has 7 wins by knockout. He has 2 submissions. He has a 100% finish rate in his wins. I'm going to go with that guy.
Sounds good.
There's my expert analysis.
All right, so this next one is another one that's kind of tricky on who I was deciding who's going to win. You have Terrence McKinney going against Kyle Nelson. And ultimately decided on Nelson. He's looked better in his last handful of fights. He is, 4-1 in his last 5. He kind of had a bit of a bad streak before that where he had 4 losses, 1 win, 1 draw in 1 series. But since then, he hasn't lost any except for 1. That was against Steve Garcia. Outside of that, he's looked pretty solid. He's faced really stiff competition. Going against Terrence McKinney, who is overall 17-8, so it's an okay record. But he's 2-2 in his last 4. He's 3-3 in his last 6, 4-4 in his last 8. He's almost 50-50 in his last good handful of fights. So I'm looking right here. You have loss, win, loss, loss, win, win, loss, win, win, loss. So when you're 50-50 for that long of a period going against someone who has looked a good bit better lately, it's going to make me favor that person. So I'm going with Kyle Nelson in that one.
This is one of those fights where you get your casual buddies and you say, turn on the fight, because Terrence McKinney is chaos. He's 17-8. He has 8 wins by knockout, 9 wins by submission. So that's 17 finishes and his 17 victories. He's got 16 first-round finishes, and his average fight length is 2 minutes and 34 seconds. Don't blink. Don't go to the bathroom. Don't go get your popcorn. You need to be watching this from the very beginning, because win, lose, or draw, Terrence McKinney fights are fun. T-Rex is going to put on a show. I don't know if he wins or loses. I'm going to say that. I'm going to predict that he wins, but I know it'll be fun. So that's one guy that if you're like, hey, what's a guy to watch or look for? Yeah, his record isn't great, but entertaining. And that's what this Paramount era is all about, bringing the entertaining fights. Watch Terrence McKinney and Mr. Nelson. I think it'll be a fun one.
Yeah. So, unfortunately, I won't be able to watch these, at least not live. Might have to go try to catch them later on my computer or my tablet or something later. If any of these fights really stick out, if the boys text me and say, hey, these fights are great, you should tune in, I'll try to squeeze in a little bit of time to go ahead and watch these. But I definitely won't be watching these live, and I won't be here for the recap of it all, but it should still be a pretty fun card, I think. And then you have some...
I agree.
Yeah, you have some more fights coming up after that. I'll be coming home right around the time the following event happens, so you guys might have to take the reins on that one as well. But I will definitely be back to watch live and break down UFC 327 April 11th. That is going to be a really, really, really fun card, but we will get to that when we get to that. So that's all I got really on these two events. I don't really have any recent MMA news that's sticking out that I feel needs to be talked about. So anything you got?
No, looking forward to next week's card. We'll see if Izzy can stay relevant or if he starts to drop down the rankings. I think it's generous that he's still in the top 5, but a loss there, I think we see him, depending on how it goes, especially if he's finished, potentially dropping out of the top 10. So big implications for that fight.
Sounds good. One more thing I do want to mention before I go, because I'm not going to be able to talk about it, moving forward because I'm going to be in Disney. In a couple of weeks, you do have a fight night being headlined by Renato Moicano and Chris Duncan. Chris Duncan, 15-2, very dangerous opponent. He's actually coming off a win over Terrence McKinney, who we just talked about. And Moicano, a couple wins here, a couple losses here, but I'm going to throw it out there right now. I'm going to go with Moicano just because I like him so much. And that's it.
I like it.
That's my only reason.
One other quick aside. We have the fights coming up here, and they're going to be in Seattle. It's not going to be in the Apex. I always rant to you guys in the text message chain. I don't like Apex fights. To me, that's just not a place where it's exciting. I don't think the fighters get up for it as much. Of course, they, prepare well, but it just doesn't bring the juice that a live crowd does. The fact they're going to Seattle or anywhere not named the Apex card in Las Vegas always excites me. I think it's going to be fun. So shout out to the UFC for making that happen. Yep.
The Moicano Duncan fight that I just mentioned actually will be in the Apex. That's the one the week after. Yeah. That's the one. This card is, you have 2 good headlining fights, Moicano versus Duncan. You have Verna Jandiroba against Tabitha Ritchie, 2 strong contenders in the women's strawweight division. Outside of that, no notable names. So
right.
And that's an Apex card for you. At least they give you 2 good fights.
They give you something to bring in.
2 potentially good fights. But I'm telling you, the card after that. After that. Oh my goodness. I am super excited for 327.
Yeah.
So we'll definitely
that's going to hold up as one of the best cards of the year, I believe.
I think so.
Yeah, that'll be a fun one.
I mean, come on. I'm gonna just throw out some names here. Vicente Luque and Gastelum, Godinez, Kevin Holland, Gamrot is on this card. Ribovic is on this card. Cub Swanson. Has Cub Swanson ever been in a bad fight? Aaron Pico.
The guy he's fighting is one of my very favorites, Nate Landwehr. Not many people are going to know that name, but I know that name. What a fun fighter.
Yes. You got Reyes versus Walker. You got Blaze versus Hokit. What? Man, Van versus Tatsuro Taira. I still think it should be Cop, but regardless, Van versus Taira, is fireworks. And the main event, dude.
Guaranteed banger.
Bro. Prohaska versus Olberg. Oh, my goodness. That's not really going to decision. That is not. The judges could take a restroom break. They are not needed for that fight. 5 rounds between Prohaska and Olberg. You think the judges are going to be needed? No.
Oh my God, no. Within 25 minutes, somebody's going night, and that'll be on CBS, by the way.
Yep.
So a big showcase.
All right. Well, that's all I got. So, you have anything else you want to say before we sign off?
Nah, man, that's it. It was fun catching up, and yeah, looking forward to next weekend.
All right, so thank you for tuning in once again to the Ground and Pound cast. Be sure to tune in next week where Rick and Roy will have to take over for me while I'm out of town, where they break down these next set of fights. So y'all have a good one.
So long.